October 11, 2025, Gulf of Mexico. 187 nautical miles off the Louisiana coast, a U.S. Navy destroyer picks up a faint radar signature moving northeast at 11 knots. No transponder. No radio contact. Just a barely visible wake cutting through the water. What they're tracking isn't supposed to exist. The USS Michael Murphy had been patrolling these waters for 6 days. Standard interdiction operations, monitoring drug routes from South America into the continental United States. But this contact was different. The radar signature kept disappearing, reappearing, fading in and out like a ghost. The vessel was running just below the surface, barely visible to satellite imaging, almost invisible to standard radar systems. The watch officer made the call to naval intelligence at 04:23 hours. Within minutes, a P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft was airborne from Jacksonville Naval Air Station. 2 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters launched from the destroyer. A second destroyer, the USS Porter, changed course to intercept because what was moving through those waters wasn't a fishing boat. It wasn't a cargo ship, it was a narco-submarine. And this one was different from anything the Navy had seen before. The P-8 Poseidon reached the coordinates at 05:47 hours. The aircraft dropped to 1,200 feet, deploying multispectral imaging cameras and infrared sensors. There, just beneath the surface. A dark shape, approximately 80 feet long. Moving deliberately, maintaining a steady course toward the Mississippi Delta, the imaging revealed something else. 2 smaller vessels flanking the submarine. Fast boats, approximately 35 feet each, moving in formation, escort boats. The intelligence officer aboard the Poseidon counted the heat signatures. 25 armed individuals spread across both vessels. Automatic weapons visible on deck. This wasn't a smuggling operation. This was a military convoy. The submarine continued northeast. The escort boats maintained their defensive positions. They were 140 nautical miles from the Louisiana coast. At current speed, they would reach U.S. territorial waters in less than 13 hours. The Navy had a decision to make. Intercept now, in international waters, and risk a firefight with heavily armed cartel gunmen, or track and observe, gathering intelligence but allowing the submarine to get closer to American shores. The commander of the USS Michael Murphy requested authorization to engage. At 06:15 hours, the order came through from 5th Fleet Command. Stop that submarine. By any means necessary, the interception plan was precise. 2 Navy patrol boats would approach from the south, cutting off the escape route. The USS Michael Murphy would position itself to the east. The USS Porter would block from the west. The Seahawk helicopters would provide air support and fire control if needed. The boarding team consisted of 12 Navy sailors, 6 sharpshooters, 4 boarding specialists, and 2 explosive ordnance technicians, all armed with M4 carbines and sidearms. They launched at 07:33 hours. The patrol boats raced across the water at 45 knots. The distance closed rapidly. 5 nautical miles. 3 nautical miles. 1 nautical mile. That's when the cartel escort boats reacted. The southern escort boat suddenly accelerated, turning hard to intercept the Navy patrol boats. Muzzle flashes erupted from the deck. The distinct rattle of AK-47 fire echoed across the water. The Navy boats returned fire immediately. The Seahawk helicopters banked hard, descending to 300 feet. Door gunners opened up with M240 machine guns, raking the cartel boat with controlled bursts. The second escort boat broke formation, trying to shield the submarine as it began an emergency dive, but the submarine was slow. Too slow, the Navy patrol boats closed the distance. Sharpshooters on the bow took precise shots at the cartel gunmen. 3 went down within seconds. The others scrambled for cover behind steel plating welded to the boat's superstructure. The Seahawk's machine gun fire tore through the engine compartment of the southern escort boat. Black smoke poured from the stern. The boat slowed, listing to port. The second escort boat tried to run. The USS Porter opened fire with its 25mm Bushmaster cannon. The rounds walked across the water, stitching the cartel boat from stern to bow. The vessel exploded in a ball of orange flame. The submarine was alone, but the submarine wasn't trying to escape. It was trying to sink itself. The Navy boarding. Team watched as the submarine's conning tower hatch opened. A cartel operative appeared, holding what looked like a detonator. The sniper on the lead patrol boat had a 280-meter shot. Moderate swell. Target moving at 8 knots, he fired once. The cartel operative dropped, the detonator falling into the water. The boarding team moved fast. 2 specialists rappelled from the Seahawk helicopter directly onto the submarine's deck. They secured the hatch before anyone else could emerge. Flashbangs went in first. Then the boarding team. What they found inside changed everything. The submarine wasn't a crude, homemade vessel built from fiberglass and plywood. This was a sophisticated piece of marine engineering. The hull was constructed from reinforced fiberglass composite with radar-absorbent paint coating every surface. The conning tower was retractable, designed to sit flush with the hull when submerged. Inside, the submarine had 3 compartments. The forward compartment held the navigation systems and crew quarters. 2 bunks, a small galley, encrypted satellite communication equipment mounted to the bulkhead. The middle compartment was the command center. A pilot station with digital displays showing depth, speed, GPS coordinates, and battery levels. An autopilot system linked to the satellite uplink. The rear compartment was cargo, bundles, dozens of them. Vacuum-sealed packages stacked floor to ceiling. The Navy's explosive ordnance technicians tested a sample, methamphetamine, high purity, and cocaine, pressed into 1 kilogram bricks. The final count took 4 hours, 3 tons, 3,000 kilograms of narcotics. Street value, approximately $415 million, enough methamphetamine to supply a mid-sized American state for 3 months. Enough cocaine to flood the market from Houston to Atlanta, but the drugs weren't the most disturbing discovery. The submarine had lithium-ion battery, Banks military-grade power cells capable of providing propulsion for 600 nautical miles completely. Submerged, it had a closed-circuit rebreather system that scrubbed CO2 from the air, allowing the crew to remain underwater for up to 96 hours. It had passive sonar, active countermeasures, decoy launchers designed to confuse acoustic tracking. This wasn't a smuggler's submarine, this was a prototype naval vessel built for one purpose: to move narcotics undetected through heavily patrolled waters. Naval intelligence pulled the submarine's navigation logs from the command system. The encrypted data took 6 hours to crack. What they found was worse than anyone expected. The submarine had made this journey before, twice. First run, July 18, 2025. Departed from a hidden facility near Puerto Cabello, Venezuela, delivered 2.8 tons of cocaine to a pickup point 40 miles off the Texas coast. Total transit time, 11 days. Second run, September 3rd, 2025. Same route, 3.1 tons of methamphetamine and cocaine. Successfully delivered. This was the third run. The cartel had been operating this submarine for 4 months, right under the Navy's nose. Intelligence analysts dug deeper into the satellite data. They cross-referenced signal intercepts. With known cartel communication patterns, the results were staggering. This wasn't the only submarine. The Jalisco New Generation cartel had built at least 12 of these vessels. 12 submarines, each capable of transporting 3 tons of narcotics per trip. Operating on rotating schedules, the math was brutal. If each submarine made just 4 trips per year, that's 144 tons of narcotics entering the United States annually. At an average value of $138,000 per kilogram, the total market value exceeded $5 billion. $5 billion every year. Moving silently beneath the surface of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea, the submarines launched from hidden docking facilities along the Venezuelan coast. Corrupt Venezuelan military officers provided security and logistical support. The submarines traveled submerged for 80% of their journey, surfacing only at night to recharge batteries and receive updated coordinates. When they reached U.S. waters, smaller fast boats would meet them at predetermined GPS coordinates. The narcotics were transferred in less than 30 minutes. The submarines would turn around and head back to Venezuela. The operation was surgical, professional, funded by billions in cartel profits, and the U.S. Navy had only found 1 submarine, 11. More were still out there. The firefight in the Gulf of Mexico ended with 3 cartel gunmen dead, 5 captured, 1 American sailor wounded, a through-and-through gunshot to the shoulder. He survived. The captured cartel operatives refused to talk. They were professionals, former Venezuelan Navy personnel recruited with promises of $200,000 per successful run. The submarine was towed to a secure naval facility in Mississippi for full analysis. Engineers spent weeks disassembling every component, tracing every manufacturing mark, identifying every supplier. The batteries came from a factory in China. The navigation systems were modified commercial GPS units. The satellite uplink hardware was purchased through Shell. Companies in Panama the cartel had built a supply chain as sophisticated as any military procurement operation. Naval intelligence briefed the Joint Chiefs of Staff on October 19, 2025. The assessment was clear: the cartels weren't just smuggling drugs anymore. They were building a shadow navy. The U.S. Navy elevated alert protocols across the entire Gulf of Mexico. Patrol frequency doubled. Surveillance aircraft flew continuous missions. Satellite assets were retasked to monitor known cartel operating areas, but the reality was sobering. The Gulf of Mexico covers 600,000 square miles. The Caribbean Sea covers 1.06 million square miles. The submarines were nearly invisible to standard radar. They could dive below thermal imaging depth. They operated on unpredictable schedules. Finding them was like hunting ghosts. The Navy estimated that for every submarine they intercepted, 3 more completed their missions successfully, and the cartels were already building more. Intelligence reports from November 2025 indicated construction of at least 8 additional submarines at hidden facilities in Venezuela and Colombia. These new models were larger, capable of carrying 5 tons of cargo. They had improved battery systems with 900 nautical mile range. They were getting better. The Jalisco New Generation cartel had invested an estimated $40 million into submarine development over 3 years. That investment had already returned more than $1.2 billion in successful drug deliveries. From a business perspective, it was brilliant. From a national security perspective, it was a nightmare. Because if the cartels could move drugs in submarines, they could move anything: weapons, people, explosives. The line between drug trafficking and maritime terrorism had blurred. The U.S. Navy wasn't just fighting a war on drugs anymore. They were fighting an underwater arms race against an enemy with unlimited funding, against an enemy that didn't follow rules of engagement, against an enemy that could hide beneath the waves and strike anywhere along 12,000 miles of American coastline. The October 11th interception was a victory, but it was just one battle. The war was far from over. Right now, somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, another submarine is moving through the darkness, loaded with tons of narcotics, crewed by former military operators. Following encrypted coordinates toward the American coast, the Navy is hunting them, but the cartels are already 3 steps ahead. Subscribe if you want to see what happens next.